The weaver's spell. The air tasted of ash and anticipation, as if my life had been a long, slow kindling for this single, desperate blaze. I was destined for the wolf's path, though no one, not even the shepherds, knew that they were guiding me there. Perhaps it was merely a change of hands, a prize snatched from the jaws of the colder she-wolf, a creature who fed on silence and decorum. My earliest lessons were in invisibility, my voice a forgotten echo, my presence a ghost in my own home. I learned to bend, to serve, to disappear, becoming a perfect, polished vessel, waiting to be filled. My mother was an empty chalice, and I was her first offering. Her love was a dry well. It sustained the others who came after, but I was taught only to be a reflection of her expectations. Polite, obedient, and above all, mute. I was a well-behaved child, a quiet shadow, and in that silence, I became a void. When the wolf arrived, he did not need to hunt. He simply found the hole where my soul should have been. He was a master of currents, testing the waters of my fear and my obedience with just a gentle tap or a sudden shove, and then the soothing balm of a kind word. He was the first to ask for my silence and then listen to the broken music of my thoughts. I spoke not of myself, but of the suns and the moons that I orbited, the people that I adored in the world that had passed me by. And he sat, a patient spider, collecting the shimmering threads of my devotion and my secrets of my universe. He saw my gaping emptiness and began to spin his magic. He asked me to soothe the aches in his bones, and my hands, though small, became an extension of his will. He wished for a drink, so I ran through the dusty streets to bring him the elixir of my compliance. He feigned hunger, and I, as a young witch in training, baked a feast of my desperate desire to please him. I was a pathetic creature, an empty cup pouring itself out, and he was the sorcerer of the shadows. With each compliant act, he wove a stronger thread of his spell, a gossamer thin chain of obligations and false kindness. Soon he would have me tangled in his web, a puppet of his making, bound by a magical contract I didn't even know I had signed. My spirit, dim and flickering, was an unlit lantern waiting for a flame. I was young when the Weaver first appeared, a man who moved with dark and unsettling grace, and his confidence was a blazing fire. But something within me, a part of my spirit that craved recognition, flared to life in his presence. My usual invisibility gave way to a strange, uncharacteristic flirtatiousness, built of kindness and a profound desire to be liked. A desperate yearning for a true friend who saw my presence and valued it. He came to my house that very day. A storm on the horizon I knew that I should fear. I turned down his invitation for a ride, a small rebellion against his force. But every morning for weeks he waited at the corner, a patient wolf. The repetition of his presence wore down my defences, and one morning I accepted. We talked, and in our conversations a new world opened. I felt a strange sense of comfort, a freedom to speak on a wide variety of subjects. But he was not a mere conversationalist. He was a collector of secrets. He asked too many questions about my family, the dynamics, the silent spaces, the places where my light flickered and died. I didn't see his motives. I believed this was how people connected, how friendships were forged. I didn't know any better. I did not realise that he was gathering the threads of my story, mapping the landscape of my soul so that he could weave his spell and bind me to his will. His words were poison.
You deserve better,
He'd whisper.
I would treat you better than that.
He spoke of trust like a precious rare gem, telling me that he was the only one worthy of it, while warning me against sharing my secrets with anyone else. His charm was a trap, each seemingly caring word a thread in the net that he was casting. The true ensnarement came with his first command, a demand to flee with him to a distant city. This ultimatum severed my last connection from the outside world, a final cutting of the rope that tied me to my old life. His commands were absolute, his voice a hammer against the soft clay of my being.
Never cut your hair. It would look stupid. Don't ever backtrack me or make me out to be a fool.
The most chilling of his warnings was always,
Don't you ever dare backstab me, because you won't like my reaction.
he relished in public displays of my humiliation, a grotesque magic trick where he made me disappear in front of others. One moment he would feign a profound tenderness, a warmth I ached for, only to twist it days later into a promise of control, telling me that he was the gentle lover that I had always needed. He had used my deepest secrets against me, turning my past violation into a twisted excuse for his own. He spoke of being a gentle lover, a perverse promise that would unravel my reality. His was a magic of intimidation and coercion, a dark ritual where the power dynamic was a tool for force. My body, already a foreign land, became a site of his conquest, my soul withdrawing even further into its private universe. Once I was isolated in that distant city, the erosion of my soul began in earnest. He was a master storyteller, fabricating dark tales of others who had trusted the wrong people to reinforce my dependence on him alone. His hatred for the world, especially the police, a hatred born from his 5 years in a cold stone prison, became my hatred too. He systematically destroyed my belief in justice, hammering home the corruption of all authority and offering twisted assessments of my own parents and family. The violence, when it came, was a shadow that had always been waiting in the wings. I was just 16 then, and his unpredictable rage was now a physical storm. The strange crimson flush on his neck, a telltale mark of the darkness about to descend. The first night in that new city is a fog of half memories, a waking nightmare of semi-consciousness, the desperate scream of his aunt echoing in the room, "No, stop, you'll kill her!" It was a brutal baptism into the new reality of my life. The next moments of my life are lost to me, a vast empty space. I only remember 3 days passing before his cousin's abduction exposed my status as a runaway. My parents were told, and a train ticket was arranged, but he refused his release of his prize. He insisted on a ticket of his own, and he came with me. His threat, a whispered knife.
If you leave me, you are as good as dead.
Vagabonds, sleeping in doorways and on park benches. Our lives a grim, nomadic existence. In a futile attempt at reconciliation, a counsellor was arranged to mediate between him and my parents. But I was not a girl who could cooperate. I was his puppet on strings. My words no longer my own, my tongue speaking the angry, programmed opinions that he had instilled in me. Yet beneath the performance, a part of me was screaming with rage at my parents for never having heard the desperate cry in my terrible behaviour before. My family later told me that 3 days that I remember were actually 3 months. My mind, a broken clock, had stopped ticking, and my soul had been fractured by the immense trauma. The missing time was a void where I had ceased to exist, and it was only the beginning.